little over a week ago, Vintage RPG featured this book on Instagram. It's The Tourist Guide to Transylvania, and I want to do a quick flip through of it. First, because it's important to me. I got it when I was 7 years old, and it informed a lot of my tastes as well as my ideas of fantasy. But secondly, because I think it proves the point that sometimes non-gaming books like these can be just as inspirational and fuel for gaming as official books. And something like this can be used pretty easily as a campaign setting. This came out in 1981. It was intended for children, and it kind of features a mythic Transylvania of tales and monster movies. But even though its audience is children, a lot of the artwork is fairly intense for small kids. Although, like I said, I had it when I was 7, so potentially it informed my taste, I suppose. Starts off with a map here of Transylvania and its environs, and gives you place names there that are featured throughout the book. The book is pretty much filled with a lot of undead. Skeletons, ghouls, zombies, vampires, that sort of thing, ghosts. But it also features a lot of weird things like this alien illithid in a goblin mine. And the conceit of the book is it's like a tourist guide. So it talks about travel and accommodations, and this is your alien tour guide to the goblin mines of the Carpathians. But it also features demons and devils quite heavily as well as astral travel and magic, curses, hexes, that kind of thing. You may be familiar with a lot of this artwork in other places. And it kind of features a sword and sorcery kind of feel to it, as well as just strange, weird fantasy. This was a White Dwarf cover, I think. But the great thing about this book is it kind of gives you small glimpses into ideas that you can use in gaming. Cairns that could be used as part of rumors or legends. And the way the book is written, the text kind of speaks about these places and things as if they are known. It doesn't kind of over-describe them, which is nice. It speaks also of demons by order. This is a demon of the 4th order. It says, now, that doesn't necessarily translate to your D&D demons, but it doesn't necessarily have to. That's not the point. And going back to Vintage RPG, which has an account on Instagram as well as a podcast, about a year ago, he featured a series of books that he highlighted as these kind of non-gaming, for lack of a better word, source books that were influential to him as a kid. And he pointed out that when you're a kid, sometimes 20 or 30 years ago, and didn't have access to the amount of information that people do now, you had to make do with a lot of books in the library that you could check out. So using books like these as your monster manuals or your deities and demigods or setting books, sometimes necessary if you didn't have a gaming store in the town you grew up in. As I said, some of it's pretty gory, but it's terrific. And like a lot of source books, these, even official source books, these kind of things don't have a lot of mechanics to them. It's a lot of lore. It's a lot of fluff, for lack of a better term. But that's okay. A lot of that stuff you can make up on your own. It's the ideas that count. In this picture, for instance, the caption mentions that some earth elementals have the ability to manifest themselves in the materials which they're associated with. And it says here is one which inhabits the tombstone of vampires, so it takes on those properties. That's a terrific idea. That's amazing. Like, how many times have you come across earth and elementals in the game that are kind of boring and bland, just kind of mud monsters? This is neat. This again, I believe, is another magazine cover. It's been featured. I think this is actually maybe in Call of Cthulhu, one of the versions of that as well. I could be wrong about that. It also just helps redefine your ideas of typical monsters. Like it's rare when I thought of, when you think of centaurs, I think of David Sutherland's on the cover of the Monster Manual. This is a lot cooler. Picture of Lucifer, the three faces. A demon of the third order, apparently. There's an area of standing stones by the Dolmen Trail. You could easily plop something like Necrotic Gnome's Dolmenwood kind of setting in something like this. And a section on possession and obsession. A sore as a result. Tips for recovery from said afflictions. There's an example of possession. And that's pretty much it. Basically, I just wanted to take a quick look at it, because I think it's a neat book. You can find them sometimes at secondhand stores, fairly cheap. Online, they can be pretty expensive. But if you are looking out at a used bookstore for certain types of books, something like this is fantastic. If nothing else, just for the artwork, but also for fuel for your next game.